pangitabo sa palibot kang Susan Tahigala. Susan Live!
Maayong gabi, Pilipinas, o good morning sa the rest of the world. Sa Hunyo 12, ang Pilipinas magsaulog sa independensya, kagawasan, gikan sa Spanish rule over 120 years ago. Ang flag sa Pilipinas gipakayab sa unang higayon niadtong June 12, 1898. At the same time, ang pagkanta sa national anthem. Sa usa ka gamay nga nasod nga adunay 7,000 islands, ang katawhan nagpakita sa ilang kaisog sa pakigbisog, pakig-away aron makuha ang kagawasan gikan sa Espanya, gikan sa Britain, gikan sa US, sa Japan, balik sa US, and eventually natagaan sa kagawasan ug atong natagamtaman ang mga civil liberties sa karon nga panahon. Dili sayon ang naagian sa atong mga ginikanan ang ilang kinabuhi, ang ilang gibuhis para makuha kani siya nga kagawasan. Pitsadusi dili angay kalimtan. Kung wala kini mahitabo, tingali dili nato matagamtaman ang gikaingon ko na nga mga kagawasan nga atong natagamtaman karon lakip na nga inyo akong madunggan dinhi sa makitan sa television o madunggan sa radyo. Busa atong itudlo sa Generation X o sa umaabot nga henerasyon o sa sunod pa nga mga henerasyon sa pagtuon sa history sa Pilipinas, pagdumdum sa sakripisyo nga gihimo sa atong mga national heroes, pag-appreciate sa atong sovereignty o pagpalangga sa atong kultura, pagpalangga sa atong tradisyon o pagpalangga sa atong nasod kay usara ang nasod nga Pilipinas. Ug ang ngayon pakini nga sa ulogon. Good evening, good morning, and welcome sa atong panaguban. Tonight, ato sang i-check kung naana ba ang atong bisita. Okay, naog gamay murag kana galing kumunaog ko gamay okay na ba na siya Jong? Kana galing kana siguro akong i-adjust. Okay na ba na siya Jong? All right. Okay, all right. Okay na siya Jong. Maybe after commercial akong i-adjust. All right, no? Ja, sa atong partner karon atong kauban si Jong. Anyway, wala ko'y mga dinagko nga mga balita, no? The headlines, because we will continue with our discussion with our guest last time, if you remember. All right, so for purposes of her listeners in the country where she is now, we have to speak English. Maybe later, I can inject some questions in Bisaya and then translate that. We will be like a court, no? Because sa korte, we use the English language for record purposes and later i-translate. All right? So, naana ba siya, Jong? No? Okay, kajut lang. All right. So, di ta maglangan. All right. Okay, no? So, if I am a government official, which I am not, and I have no plans, one of the topics that I am passionate about, people, public, the citizenry, and, if I may add, public places. In a few countries that I have visited, like Australia, I was there, in England, Paris in France, the Bahamas, and passing through and by some other countries in the course of my travel. And now that I am living in the US, I have noticed and observed how the government or the government of these countries that I have mentioned place premium on their public places where people converge, where people meet, where people observe some events. That is why today, our guest, who was our guest last Friday, would attempt to explain and would explain actually why and how does the everyday public life in the public plazas or parks of Cagayan de Oro exhibit vibrancy. And second, which is the most important to me, how are the marginalized included in the public spaces of CDO despite the dynamics of transformative processes? Okay? Joining us again tonight is from Cagayan de Oro, a graduate of Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan in her bachelor's degree and completed her doctoral degree from Pasang with distinction, a magna cum laude. She published a book entitled Vibrancy of Public Places, Inclusivity and Participation Amidst the Challenges in Transformative Processes in the City of Cagayan de Oro, Philippines. Joining us is Dr. Luzile Satur. Good morning, Dr. Satur. Where are you? Asa na si Jong? Okay, kadyot lang ha. All right, so where is she? Hello, hello. Oh, oh. Okay, okay. So maybe while wala pa siya Jong, okay na siya. Okay, so have you heard my introduction, Dr. Satur? So I don't have to, so we'll maximize our time. So I don't have to repeat. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, right. Oh, ga-echo. It's ga-echo. What's happening, Jong? While i-adjust ni Jong and whatsoever. So, you okay now? 3, 2, 1. Mic test, Dr. Satur, please.
Right, okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just a bit confused with the connection. Yeah, right. Let me just...
Yeah.
Can I share with you, Madam, my slides?
Yeah, go ahead now. Go ahead now because I made the introductions already. So you go ahead. It's your maximize the time. Go ahead, Dr. Satur.
Anyway, yeah, I see that there's a time limit here. So thank you very much for introducing me again and being the guest for this week again. And I'm trying to share my slides right now. I can't do that. So, and as I've requested, thank you again for allowing me to speak in English. This is for the listeners here in Germany, as well as in the other places. I would like to share. Okay, right there. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So as I have promised last week, I will talk about this. This is only a portion of my book. And let me just make it, okay, there. I don't know.
While she's preparing for her slides, take note that we should be speaking in English because some of the audience is in Germany and there are Germans, so we will use the universal language English. All right, and then if you have questions in Bisaya, then I know that you can understand. No, our listeners, those who watch on TV and when the streaming on Facebook, they can understand English. So there's no problem with that. So subuli unako again. vibrancy of public places. And what is vibrancy? Allow me to translate. Kabibo, na energy, kalipay, ana. All right, go ahead, Dr. Satur. Okay.
Yes, good morning again. I'm just trying to, yeah, make it full screen. It seems like there's like some technical difficulties here, but let me just, where is it? Yeah, I really can't make it full screen. Okay, we'll just do it like this. Yeah, as I've mentioned, this is a part of my book, and today I'm talking about this chapter entitled Alternatives to Illiteracy and Criminality. It's about street arts and reading in our hometown, that is Cagayan de Oro City. And yeah, and then there's really a problem here. Is the
So,
challenge
all right.
with with Zoom. I don't know. It's not really working.
Yeah, if there, can you continue with your lecture or talking or conversation without
Yeah.
the slides? Her book is what she's going to discuss is part of her 200 pages book. Okay, and to be honest, I was still, I think, page 12. But anyway, interesting book, interesting book. I thought all the while because last week, I think I mentioned about Vicente de Lara Park, only to find out that it's mentioned in that book. And it's for those studying the history of, I think, Misamis Rental and Cagayan de Oro and how the city and the province are intertwined together. I suggest that you read this book authored by Dr. Satur. It's a very interesting book. And then historical that, and of course, no, public figures and personalities are mentioned in her book, like the Imanos, Moreno, and who else? Then the war, and even the war, no, World War II was also mentioned. Schools, universities, and how these, the people and places, the politicians interplay in the dynamics of what we call the transformative process of what the province and the city right now. Right, Dr. Sator? Are you ready?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead,
just
go ahead. Take your turn now.
trying to make it a full screen. I don't know. It's not really working, but yeah, but we can move on. Yeah, and
So
this is
what's
what I'm
available?
showing
All
to
right.
you right now. This is the second slide, and this is actually the cover. This is my book, so this is the cover of my book, where you can see the title. I'm not really sure if you can read the
Well, you can
title.
read it. If
But
I can
that's-
read it, then
yeah.
others can read it.
Yep. So that's how the book looks like. And then as I've mentioned last time, I'm drawing from some philosophies or elements in order to explain to you. This is quite academic. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I will try to simplify everything here. And yeah, and just give me a signal if the advertisement is
We
going to
will,
be
we will,
shown.
Dr. Sator. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Okay, and then
Okay.
translate that in a language that is understandable to everyone. But if you will, just continue. Go ahead. I'll
Yep.
do it.
Yeah. So now I'm going to show. I think there's a problem now with the connection. I think it's the connection. It's not really it's the connection, I guess. So third slide that I'm showing to you, and this is just a a representation, like a drawing or a diagram, and you could see. Let me try to. It's not really working, but we just. Yeah. Right now it's not yet there, but yeah, let me just explain it to you right now. Yeah, there are three elements, and I've already mentioned this last week, no? And I have emphasized these terms: fluidity, inclusivity, and vibrancy. Yeah, I think it's now showing the third slide, but I think we need to wait for a few seconds or minutes probably, so that the diagram will be shown. And so you have there the three elements. No? I'll repeat it again: fluidity, inclusivity, vibrancy. And in the intersection of these three elements, you have there in the middle the subjects. Right.
Can you mention again what are these elements for purposes of those who are watching, who were not around last Friday? What are these three elements you're talking about?
Yeah, I will repeat these words. First, fluidity, and then second, inclusivity. Third, vibrancy. Oh, there. Now it's on the screen. Now you can see that. Yeah, it's now full screen. And then in the middle, or the intersection of these three elements, as you can see, there's the subject or the subjects. And now I will explain to you what this fluidity means. And now I'm going to the next slide, and it would take some time again to be shown. Yeah, but I will start talking about it now. So fluidity, this is, I'm referring to this concept by Fernand Braudel. No, he's a very well-known among the historians and social scientists, and is actually a French, no, Fernand Braudel, and he has this perception about time and history, and he's saying that there are three kinds of history. You have the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And now I'm referring to the long term, or in French they say longue durée. No? So we are referring to a long-term history here if we talk about fluidity of spaces. So now I'm trying to combine the elements of time and space, and I'm using this perception from Braudel, like a long-term history. They call it a longue durée. And I'm also combining this with another concept, and the concept is thalassocracy. Okay, this is from an article by the author Ross, and here he defines thalassocracy as the rule of the sea. This does not mean rule by the sea, as aristocracy means the rule by the best, which wouldn't make much sense, but rule by those who control the sea. So to simplify it to you, it means that the bodies of water, it can refer to the sea, to the river, to the lake, so on and so forth, can be ruled by anybody, by anyone. So it's not only the few or the aristocrats or the elites who can manage these fluid spaces, but anybody. And yeah, so that's the point there in my book. And this applies to mainland Southeast Asia and island, Southeast Asia. Okay, now I think in the screen you can see the diagram. Yeah, and yeah, that's fluidity. And then I'm going to show to you the next concept. I think there's really a challenge now with the connection, right?
Okay. Well, if encounter that challenge of connection, maybe you can proceed
Yeah,
without
yeah.
these slides. Let me just say hi to Alma Habien Lumaca there in Cagayan de Oro and to Ivan Torres. They are watching right now, and of course to Hani Mihurada. Okay, no, so still with Dr. Luzile Satur. Actually, at first, no, you might not. What is she talking about? But this one is very interesting. It's really very interesting. Now, maybe what about if no need for the slides and you will just discuss the portion of the book which would benefit no the marginalized group, though.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll just continue talking because yeah, it's really difficult now to show to you the slides. So yeah, just to proceed with our focus. I've been talking about these elements, and the next element that I'm going to talk about is about inclusivity. Here we ask the question, who are included in public spaces? And we have so many kinds of actors. And as I have mentioned and emphasized that we are really focusing on the marginalized, but the public space can include anybody, anyone, as I've said, and it can include political actors or actors from the corporate world or the civil society. Yeah. So these are just examples of the person or the people who are included in public spaces. Yeah. So as you've mentioned, Madam, earlier, that yeah, in my book I talk about these our state or local state leaders. So I was really trying to analyze these competition among the political elites. So that's why I needed to shed light on how politics is played in public spaces, right? So, for example, I've mentioned these very prominent local leaders like Moreno and Imano, and then how their competition was reflected on public spaces. And last week, you asked about the public space in provincial capital. And you can see there the competition between these two political leaders. You could, right now in capital, it's you can see the color purple all over, right? Yeah. So that refers to the administration of the Imanos. And then, yeah, before Governor Imano, the son of the former mayor, became the governor, there was Governor Moreno. And as we all know, Governor Moreno is now the governor again of the province of Misamis Oriental. So you can see this very, close competition, and the color.
It started from the father Imano, the late Donko Imano, and then came Governor Moreno, and then the Imano, the son Imano. Then and then in the this coming July would be a new governor, no? Governor Unabia. But anyway, go ahead, Doc. Okay, no, so colors, as you said, no, in our political system, especially in our place, So there is really meaning. That is why the capital, the provincial capital, everything there is purple, referring to the Imano administration, right?
Right,
But we will
exactly.
just, Doc, we will just, trust me. Maybe I will just write about this in the newspaper, but trust me, I will just lead you, I will just ask questions, okay? So there were, a part of your book, no, which I really like, no, was a direct quote from Ellen San Juan, right? Because at that time
Right,
she headed
yes.
the provincial tourism under the administration of Governor Moreno. That she said that if only they are together, there will be no competition between, not in toto, between the city and the province. Remember? That's, I think, somewhere in page 100. So what can you say about this when you analyze this uh, verbatim, no, from Ellen San Juan, the competition between the politicians, or if there is no competition at all?
Right, yes. Mrs. Ellen San Juan is, she's now working for Mayor Moreno. And when I interviewed her, the focus of our talk was about urban planning, right? And then, yeah, she made a comment about this, political competition. And she was really like in the middle of this competition between Moreno and Imano. But then she's very, very diplomatic, very polite. And she has worked with the former mayor, no? Mayor Imano, and then with Mayor Moreno. And she's been heading the office, which is, very, she's very active. She's all over. And she's not only into tourism, no? She's also into the promotion of Cagayan's
Local
economic
restaurants.
development.
She's very active, no,
Right.
in in
Right.
businesses. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if she could only, I think she was really, what she really wanted to say is that if there could only be reconciliation between these competing clans, then the city would be more peaceful politically. Yeah, and I guess
And
that
very
was her
progressive,
point.
and
Yeah.
everyone at peace at one another. Did you
Yes.
see frustration on her face? But before you answer that, Doc, we pause for some commercial, and hopefully she can work her slides. But then there are so many questions sa among pagbalik ni Jong o ni Dr. Satur. Stand by.
Sol, naka-HIV?
Ano, Dere?
Nakighilawas ka ba nga walay proteksyon? Nakaagi ka ba og sexually transmitted infection? Nagagamit ka ba og ginadili nga droga?
Hando kay Kuray.
Kung duna kay pagduda o pangutana, bisita sa Alagad Mindanao Facebook page o tawag sa 0930-247-9988. Ang imong pagkatao protektado. Ania kami andam maminaw ug moalagad kanimo. Kini nga mensahe gikan sa Alagad Mindanao ug KBP ug niining estasyon.
Hindi inaasahang pangangailangan ng pera sa M-Lolier. Walang hassle, walang problema. Kung may sasakyan ka, fill up ka lang ng application form. Plus, photocopy ng OR at CR sa sasakyan mo. At kung may motorsiklo ka, dalhin mo lang ang motorsiklo mo para sa appraisal. Plus, valid ID. Isubmit agad ito sa pinakamalapit na M-Lolier branch. Hintayin ang approval at kung approved na, may pera ka na agad. Ang ML Quick Car Loan ay available sa lahat ng branches nationwide at ang motorcycle loan ay available sa piling mga branches.
alam mo, after a minute, nagkamalay. Nung nagkamalay po, ang maganda po riyan, tinatakan po natin, humingi tayo ng tubig, warm water. Then, tinatakan po natin ng 20 drop, ipinainom po natin. Alam mo, nung mainom po, humingi ulit ako ng isang baso uli na tubig, then warm water, pinatakan ko uli ng 20 patak. Alam mo, good news po ron, nakakatuwa dahil tuluyan na siyang nagkamalay, nakapagsalita. Kaya lang napansin ko po na yung pong nung tinanong namin kung kilala yung nagpapainom ng tubig sa kanya, which is yun po yung asawa niya, hindi niya kilala. Alam mo po, nung sabi namin asawa niya, ang sagot sa akin, wala siyang asawa. Nako, sabi ko, may problema pa. Then alam mo po, may buti na lang, dala ko po yung health analyzer machine. Yung po yung high technology machine na ginagamit namin, ang tawag doon health code analyzer machine, ina-analyze ko po kung ano ang nangyari sa kanya, bakit hindi niya matandaan na may asawa siya. Alam niyo, good news, nakita ko po doon sa resulta sa machine na nagbabara yung ugat sa puso niya at nagbabara yung ugat sa utak niya. Kaya alam niyo, kagyat, natin ng treatment, no? Alam po, kagandahan, pinainom ko kagad ng cell bio food ng 10 tableta. Actually, 8 tableta lang, 8 tableta. Nitong CBF. Spirulina chlorella. Plus, pinainom ko po uli ng CMD na 20 drop. Tapos, 15 drop every 30 minutes. Alam mo, good news po ron, after 3 hours, kilala ang asawa. Kilala na rin ang anak. No? Kaya napakalaking bagay dahil hindi na po siya nasugod ng ospital, hindi na po siya naparalisa, hindi siya namatay, hanggang ngayon buhay. No? Kaya napakalaking bagay. Ang tanong, ano nga ba yung CBF? Kanina pinapaliwanag natin yung CMD. Sa katangian na kumpleto, balanced, natural, pure, ionic, and concentrated mineral. No? Ito namang CBF natin, ang CBF natin, cell bio food. Ito po ay kombinasyon ng spirulina, chlorella, and wheatgrass. Ang maganda po rito, nakakatulong po siya para sa ganon, ibalik yung mga vitamin B complex na nagkukulang sa ating katawan. Vitamin A, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, vitamin K, amino acid, protein, carbohydrate na kailangan po ng ating kalusugan. Kompleto po, nandito na. Kaya tinagurian po itong the superfood in the planet dahil sa kanyang spirulina chlorella na content, no? Sinabayan pa ng wheatgrass. Kaya po napakaraming bagay, napakarami na pong natulungan ito. Yung mga nagbabarang ugat sa puso, nagbabarang ugat sa utak, nagbabarang ugat sa yung mga binti, braso, nalilinisan po niya. No? Ang maganda po rito, anti-cancer, highly alkaline. Ang maganda po rito, nakakatulong parang sa ganon, ang ating kalusugan ay maiayos. No? Maiayos. Okay? Kaya nga napakahalaga po kung tayo po ay patuloy po nagagamit nito. Ano? Kaya po napakalaking bagay kapag ka po tayo ay gumamit nitong ating produktong ito. Parang sa ganon, tuloy-tuloy po tayong matulungan. Okay? Kaya nga po natutuwa ako dahil patuloy po dumarami yung natutulungan ng mga produktong ito. Ano pa ba yung kasama ng ating Power Trio? Kasama po ng Power Trio natin ang ating pong CBJ. Ano ba nagagawa ng CBJ? Ito po ay cell bio juice. Ang maganda rito, ito yung dating SJ5 o Supreme Juice. Bakit ginawang CBJ? Siyempre, ito po ay direkta rin na pagkain ng selula ng katawan natin. Kaya cell bio juice. Para mayroong juice na iniinom, yung ating selula. At ano nga laman nito? Meron po siyang mga prutas. Yung mga prutas, gulay. Ang maganda rito, ang sweetener niya is stevia. Meron siyang malunggay. Napaka-healthy, napaka-nutritious niyan. Meron din po siyang tinatawag po natin na papaya, no? May pineapple, may bayabas, meron pong mango, meron din po siyang guyabano. No? At ang maganda rito, sinamahan pa po siya ng peptide at vitamin A. Para sa ganon, makatulong din ito para lilinaw ang ating mga mata.
Alang sa tugma nga paggamit sa Power Trio, tawag kang Raquel Villanueva sa Dugang Kasayuran sa 0956-256-1986 o dili ba ka sa 0938-267-9717. Ang CMD nagatanyag sa ilang promo karong bulana sa matagpalit mo sa 2 ka botilya sa CMD eye drops, 500 pesos na lamang o 10% diskwento sa HCI Power Trio. Daghang salamat.
Thank you, Jong. Balik ka, no? Balik ka. Standby sa later no kay atong ipang greet no ang atong mga graduates no daghan sa nga mga schools ang nanghimo sa ilang mga moving up ceremony o guban pa og ang atong mga birthday celebrants, all right? So and also if you are watching right now or later, kindly click like and then share if you think it's worth sharing, but I tell you it's worth sharing. Information inyo makuha din dagan ninyo matunan, and then if you will no, leave a comment. Okay, so og ako sang giangyo din no atong mga igsuon no kung makakita kay mag-post nako sa straight from the Carolinas, palihog lang ko no, straight from the Carolinas. I-like also sad no kay muna atong vlog. Okay, so atong balikan si Dr. Luzile Satur. No, I'm so sorry no, technical difficulties so usay ginato naagid siya no. So but anyway, ang atong gibiyaan kaganina nga pangutana sa iya at the time of our interview with Eileen San Juan, kung nakakita ba siya frustration no, in the face of Eileen who at that time told her that if only they are united, then no competition politically, then mas dako pa no ang makabot the province sa Misamis Oriental in the city of Cagayan de Oro. All right, Dr. Satur, where are you?
Hello, ma'am. Yes, yeah, I'm back again, and thanks to you and to your question. So your question was if I saw any frustration on her face while I did the interview. I think I could only remember that she was, I think she was, and I think she still is contented with her position in the government. So she's quite happy with that, and she's quite happy to serve our city. Yeah. So I didn't. Maybe we could. Yeah. I mean, that's a fact when she said that she wished that there could be a reconciliation between the warring or the contesting mayors. Yeah, that's a fact. No, that's
that's
if
right.
you can
That's right.
put it
Okay,
that
so-
way, she was frustrated. Yeah, we can say it.
Yeah.
We can put it that way. But then if we talk about her duty, her function, yeah,
Oh, she
as
did
a
well. No, she's very
administrator
good,
in the
no?
city. Yeah, yeah.
I can
Yeah.
attest to that. So, in fact, comes June 30, some of these appointees, of our local officials, they will also be out already. So, how I wish that positions like these should stay, and this should be institutionalized. But anyway, Dr. Sator, no? So, Cagayan de Oro was chosen at the 2014 World Urban Forum, no? I'm aware of this also, by the United Nations Habitat as emerging cities of tomorrow. Okay? And then other awards were received by the city. So, what do you think? Is Cagayan de Oro giving enough public places or areas where everyone, as you said earlier, that not only the political leaders, but anyone, Juan de la Cruz, or entertainers, or even you mentioned in your book, the Zumba dancers, the sports people, oh, being given enough space by the city government to use. And we're talking about the kiosk and the Divisoria kiosk and what else? Because at the time the amphitheater was not used because it was under construction. What other public places? We only have, how many public places do we have in CDO?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Madam. The biggest, I mean, we have like several public spaces, but the biggest there is the provincial capital, right? But the most popular is the Visoria. But I guess the heart, or the very center, the most important, I think it's more important than the Visoria, and that most important public space is Gaston Park, right? Because everything
Gaston
started
Park.
there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My kino brain
So
is,
everything started there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Gaston Park.
And
Oh, we have Gaston Park,
right.
Magsaysay Park, and then uh, the kiosk. Is that the Gaston Park? Oh, no. Gaston is across the church, right? That's
Yes,
Gaston
I say
Park.
it's very important because there we have the church and the Roman Catholic Church. We have there our cathedral, San Agustin Cathedral. It's very important because that refers to our identity, no? Not only as local citizens, but as Filipinos. So that's why I'm saying that's really the most important. And it's been there for hundreds of years. Right. And the Visoria came only in the early 20th century. But Gaston Park, the church, was there for hundreds of years. So that's why I'm really putting emphasis because of our identity. No? And the thing that I want to answer your other questions, to answer that, I will bring some pages from my book, and I will explain to you what I mean by vibrant public spaces. So I'm going to just read some portion of my book, and let's try to
okay. How you define
simplify it
vibrancy
afterwards.
in your book?
Yeah.
But by the way, let me to Arian Jaden Baizas, to Dr. Satur, she said hi, good morning, good evening. Okay, go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, so this is what I mean by vibrancy. So vibrancy supplies the central element which delineates the distinction between Western and non-Western public spaces. There is clear-cut divergence between the two categories. On one hand, the Western public space brings into the city the archetypal conception of democracy, which then engenders the civilizing order of the urban inhabitants. The Western public space follows normative values and institutionalized social trends. The West, in short, benefits from the free expression of articulations and practices. So what I'm really trying to say here, that we have this concept of, or we have this practice that comes from the West. And this is the element, one of the elements of a vibrant public sphere. No? We have that influence from the West. And when you say West, the practice has been institutionalized. So I think you've also observed that in the US, wherein democracy is quite vibrant. And then in the next paragraph, I'm now talking
Too
about
vibrant.
the non-Western perspective or the non-Western practice. So I say here, on the other hand, the non-Western public space conforms to the vibrancy that does not necessarily inherit the norms and institutionalization of democratic principles from the West. In other words, there is neither homogeneity nor universality in the non-Western context. The public spaces beyond the West rather express pluralistic exercises wherein contrasting and non-contrasting elements occur at the same time, thus catalyzing processes of acknowledgement and collaboration, as well as conflict and domination. Multiple actors, identities, interactions, and dimensions produce the vibrancy of non-Western public spaces. So here, what I'm really trying to explain is that you have variations, no? Variations of perceptions and practices. And sometimes it can be conflicting, sometimes it's not so conflicting, but everything is there. You can see it in our public places, right? So, and in the third paragraph, here I'm referring back to the longue durée that Rodel has been trying to explain to us. In here, I say that vibrancy draws from the fluidity of perceptions and practices. Fluidity certainly induces the flexibility in changing or challenging conditions. With this in mind, vibrancy denotes coherence of the broader social, cultural, political, economic, as well as environmental transformations that take place or reflect in the urban public spaces, particularly in developing nations such as in Southeast Asia. Vibrancy explicitly brings in hybridity of local and global cultures in the public realm. The emergence of both cultures produces the mix of binaries, inclusion and exclusion, sacred and mundane, historical and contemporary, as well as superficial and essential, right? So,
So, sa akong nasabtan,
that is
it's
quite
more
really
of,
quite
a
technical.
confluence of
Yeah.
factors, including, among others, variations of perceptions. Am I right? The leaders at the time, and then you marry that with the history, the people, the tradition, and also how we adapt, or how the the city or the LGU adapt to the Western culture. Look,
Exactly.
right,
Yeah, exactly.
This
So
is too
it's
academic.
yeah,
I'll ask you, how many days did you write your book?
it took me a long time to write
And what
this
is that?
book
Define what
because
is long time.
yeah, when
2 years?
you do some research, you don't like do it in a few days or a few
No.
months.
So
no?
just answer
You
me.
do it.
Define the long time. 2
you-
years, 3 years, 3 years.
Should be. I think it took me some years to write it. In
Years,
PhD,
okay.
we have this minimal period of 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And then I was able to finish my book within 4 years. But before that, I've already, gathered all the data that was
you told me
needed
that last time.
for,
That you're fond
yes,
of,
as I've
writing
mentioned.
notes.
Yeah. So there are different stages in writing. And you don't, when you write something like this, you don't do it overnight.
Oh, you cannot do that. You cannot do
Yeah.
that. Even if I write my column, that will take, especially this time, maybe sometimes 1 week. If I feel like doing it, then it would be 3 days. But then sometimes 1 week. But anyway, this is really,
Yeah, but
I am very
I just
proud
like
of
to,
you. I
yeah,
thought this
because
is only about public places, and how you define vibrancy, and then the elements, how you incorporated the theory of that writer, that philosopher, into your book. But this is something, in fact, yesterday, because I injured my left leg, I was just reading your book, but then I was not in a hurry. Oh, wow. This is history of Cagayan de Oro and Misamis Oriental, actually. This is not only public places, but then maybe in the future, this can be used as reference by those who are aspiring to write more about this, or maybe you can have a part two of this book, because when you mentioned about it, oh, well, I thought it's not here, but it's here. No, the what's this? The Vicente de Laro Park, and in fact, you made mention also about the add-ons, the additional structures there added by Governor Moreno, then the one that is for the journalist, and then the sculptor that was made by that artist. But anyway, it's a very interesting book. But now we still have time, and I have to ask you this, no? There was mentioned also CDO as peripheral urban hub. You said in your book that Cagayan de Oro lacks the human and infrastructural means for urban development. Kindly explain. How is that so?
Yeah, I just like to explicate more on the monument that the former Moreno established there in provincial capital. So this monument is quite meaningful, because this monument, if you could still remember, or if you can, just imagine it in your mind. So you have like several kinds of people, yeah. And these are actually, the ordinary people in the province as well as in the city. So you have there the farmers, So they are the ones who are really the actors. So that is what the governor is trying to portray by erecting these monuments. And I find it so, meaningful and important, because it's, again, referring to the ordinary marginalized people in the city as well as in the province. So, thank you for mentioning it again, because I've mentioned so many elements in the book,
There's so many
symbols.
things there in your book.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
right, so many things in your book. Actually,
Yeah.
Just like your writing process, not only for an hour program, but then, and then also confronted with the paradox, referring to the city, confronted with the paradox between poverty and rapid urbanization. That's where I go. Oh, this is a very good question. But then maybe not on a Tuesday and a Friday, because I already have some guests on that. But maybe we will dissect your book, Dr. Satur, not with the slides anymore. Maybe question and answer, and then topics, lines that would interest me, that to my mind as a street person would interest and benefit the people of Cagayan de Oro and the province, especially so that we have our incoming public officials, new mayor in the city, and new governor in the province. And they might get you as consultant, and I will just be your secretary. Would that be okay with you? I really love your book. I love your book. And Ronnie was telling me yesterday, we go now to the doctor. I go, no, because I'm reading her book. And she said, no, you can read that overnight. I go, no, this is, I think, close to 300 pages. Well, I say, hey, you can read your book at one time. I go, no, this is important, because I was also scribbling. But anyway, Doc, wala na tayo time. As I said, maybe not next week, maybe if our time permits, the two of us, then we can schedule, and then never mind the slides. Maybe we can use the Q&A only, okay? and then I'll submit to you, and then you tell me if you are agreeable to that. Okay, so one last question for you because I'm going to my greetings portion later. One last question to you. Do you think that Cagayan de Oro and Misamis Oriental conform to your definition of a public place attuned to the needs of the marginalized group?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if we bring into this these elements, and of course, since I am the author, I would agree to what I say or what I'm been presenting. But then again, you know, there's this lack, and the lack of let's say development or justice or peace. This can be supported by the subject or the actors, and this is what I'm going to actually focus. And here I say in my book that the actor, the subject, knows his or her identity. The subject or the actor can be an instrument of change, and the subject or the actor is in the middle of these overlapping crises. So we have environmental crisis, economic crisis, social crisis, identity crisis, so on and so forth. We have all kinds of crises, but then we have to draw from our, let's say, inner strength. So we have to act because we are the subjects, we are the citizens of this city, of this world, and it is really the action, no, belongs to everybody, not only to our political leaders or corporate leaders. It belongs, the power belongs to each individual. So that's really, you know, the point that I'm trying to promote. Yeah, it sounds very idealistic, but as a, you know, as an academic,
It's doable. It's doable. We have
so
an
it's
informed
really, you know,
citizenry.
important for us to inspire. So
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, Doc, which I share, thank you very much. And I said I'll invite you again, maybe not next week, or we will sit down and check on our respective schedule. Okay, so it's very fitting, friends, with Dr. Satur, no, talking about this, that we are all catalysts for change. We are stakeholders to what is happening in our city, in our province, because we only have one city, one town, one province. And especially that we are celebrating Independence Day on the 12th. Okay, no? So the aspirations of our forebears, of our forefathers. So with that, thank you so much. And then ako ni siyang i-expound Tuesday in my segment, confronted with the paradox between poverty and rapid urbanization in Cagayan de Oro. Take note, Mayor Clarix Uy, incoming mayor, pwede na nimo ni nga kanaganing si Dr. Satur as your kanang consultant at 1 peso. Di na ka magbayad og dako kayo. No, and then ako ang secretary. Okay, thank you, Dr. Satur. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, bye-bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. To talk with you. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity. So see you next time. Yeah, we'll have a chat.
Yeah, I will. So
okay.
You are most welcome, Dr. Luzile Satur. Okay, no, to retired Judge Sanita Lucagbo, who is always watching the program. Daghang salamat. And then gamay lang kay Jong. Allow me, Jong, no? Completer sa grade 10 sa St. Mary's Academy of Taguluan, no? Usa sa ila is personal kay nino, is my apo, no? Si Sam Palmes Mihurada, who graduated, naka-complete, no? Sa iyang grade 10 kaganina, no? So that's with her sister, with his sister, ganing Ronnie, Veronica, and classmate niya nga si Chelsea Abiho. And then another slide nato, Jong, which I hope nga dili mag-go. Kaya palangga kanya yung sister, congratulations, Sam gikan kang Grandpa Ronnie, naging siya kaganina nga tell Sam, congratulations. So congratulations to Sam and to everyone, gikan sa St. Mary's Academy of Taguluan nga nag-complete. And then also, aside from that, a close friend of mine, no nag-birthday karon, no, she is very active din sa Cagayan de Oro, si Dolores Klapano nga nagsaulog-ulso sa iyang 18th birthday. So with that, ako moingon nga kita tanan ang kalambuan sa usa ka nasod, ang kalambuan sa usa ka syudad ug ang kalambuan sa probinsya anaa ka nato tanan. Kung dili kita magpakabana, ambot kinsa na lang. So with that, maayong adlaw sa tanan ug have a great weekend. Bye-bye.